I've found out since I've spoken to you last is that, and these are just from parents at TSS, that in 1922, there's a story that she was seeing one of the dads in her class in 1997, and he was a single dad, and all they can tell me was that he was a pilot. I spoke to her teacher's aide, and she said to me that when the little boy at school, Mum would run out to go and see her dad in the car, and sometimes she'd be out there for 30, 40 minutes talking to him. And Barbara, who was her sister, kind of got a little bit upset about that because she was like, oh, she left me to deal with the boys while she's out there talking to the guy. Like, you know, it was a bit of that kind of tone. And anyway, apparently Mum used to babysit the little boy to help the dad out. And the little boy came into class one day and said to my mum, oh, see that lady over there, my dad's going to marry her. And my mum collapsed and had a meltdown and ran out of the classroom. And Barbara said to me, she said, I felt like she had a breakdown at that point. And that's been really interesting for me because I didn't know about a pilot. I didn't know, like I, no, and I knew that she was openly seeing the groundsman, or the maintenance guy. That's Greg Edwards.
Greg, that's right, yeah.
So he's still at TSS. Since found him. Oh, you did?
Yeah, I spoke to him
there is
up there.
people out
Yeah,
there
okay. So
fishing.
we went out for dinner
Surfing.
with him. So Mum was very open and honest and all above board with him.
Everyone knew about that
So
relationship.
I was like, why hide the pilot? But then I spoke to Janice White, who's one of Mum's really long-term friends. Mum used to teach with her in the 60s.
Well, just go forward.
And she's friends with Barbara. So there was this kind of like little connection
I don't
that
know,
I
the
found out.
road.
And Janice said to me, I knew about the pilot. She told me about the pilot. And she said to me, I like him. I'm not sure how much he likes me.
Yeah, okay.
So that was an interesting conversation to have. So I've kind of questioned, is the pilot the guy in the car at McDonald's?
Yeah, that'll be something I'd really, really like to know. Because I remember when you gave me your statement, you talked about the fact that Mum had always pretty much been in relationships and yearned to be in relationships. So to find out who that bloke was in that car would be very, very interesting. And it'll probably give us a little bit more information than what we've got now. But the fact is we don't know who he is.
No, but I have got the
and it's
class
tough.
list, so I'm working on that.
Safer boys.
Detective Sheehan believes Marion has chosen to disappear, and he's not sure he'll ever find her.
Circumstantially, it paints a picture for me that leads me to believe that Marion, in fact, has decided to estrange herself from the family for whatever reason and get on with a new life. There are a lot of things that Sally has told me about her mother's behaviours when she was in Australia before she decided to go over to England. She's also appears to have made a fairly quick decision to have gone, in that she sold a house, resigned from a job that Sally says she absolutely loved, and then gone overseas. But prior to going, I know for a fact that she applied for this new passport in a new name, and for whatever reason again, decided not to tell the family that she had done that, and actually travelled overseas on that passport.
And yet the Thread voters asked her. She was calling, leaving messages to make sure Sally was okay. Why would someone disappear themselves from their daughter's life for good if she was still at that late stage checking in with them?
Yeah, look, I can't answer that. I don't know. I really don't know. Sally tells me that she did receive a phone call from her mum. From what I understand, that phone call is very close to when she came back to Australia. I have no idea why she would do anything like that.
The postcards seemingly countenancing a continuing relationship with her family. Why send them if you're cutting them off?
Again, I can't answer that. There may be reasons, but I just don't know the answers to that.
Now, the Luxembourg connection, there was a connection with Luxembourg, wasn't there?
There was a suggestion on the incoming passenger card. Well, it wasn't a suggestion. It was indicated on the incoming passenger card that Marion Florabella had arrived in Brisbane via Hong Kong and was residing in Luxembourg. There was also an indication that she was only going to stay in Australia for a very short period of time.
Days or weeks?
Days. But after having made some more inquiries with the Department of Immigration, those incoming passenger cards aren't checked and people aren't held accountable for what they write on them. So it would be very, very easy to write anything that you wanted on the card and it would never ever be picked up. Again, through what I had established with my other inquiries, it led me to believe that there's a very good chance that Florabella had written what she did on the incumbent passenger card to try and cover up the fact that she was coming back to Australia. Look, I don't know what goes through people's minds when they make decisions such as these, that is to start a new life for any reason that they decide. If she didn't want to be located, I think it would be a reasonable thing for someone in that mind frame to do, but to the average punter it would seem quite unusual. I mean, you have to remember that prior to going to England again, she applied for a passport with a complete name change, didn't tell anybody, travelled overseas as if nothing had happened in regards to that.
Yeah,
if you look at it in the
on.
perspective of a person who had gone to all that length of trouble to do that before she left, it just seems to be a step in the same direction.
And also, to play devil's advocate, to find out whether or not she did come under someone's spell or fall to some sort of misadventure.
Yeah, look, you spoke before about the fact that Sally had said she'd seen her mother with a gentleman. You know, to my mind, that could be one way or the other. But after, again, having seen what I've seen and seen what I've found through my investigation, it tends to sit on the timeline of her being involved with a male person and quite potentially setting up a new life for herself.
Quite a nice little spot, really.
Didn't involve her older. Whilst it's only circumstantial, it does fit that timeline of how things occurred and some of the levels of secrecy that she went to try and do some of the things that she actually did, i.e. the passport, and return to Australia without telling anybody.
Detective Sheehan says by now,
You always
Marion
find the
could
good
have
spots.
a fully established new identity and
You've been
life,
Googling, have you?
and may feel
No.
completely detached from the person she
I just
was
say
22
good, yeah.
years ago. And she has every right to maintain her privacy.
So Marion could be living here in Byron Bay for all we know. Florabella.
Well,
Look, there's a is that a
it's
caravan
possible.
out
She
there?
could be anywhere.
Up there,
She
yeah.
could be
No,
anywhere.
over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, the right of an
fuck did they
individual
get
to
that in here?
determine their own
Slowly.
destiny. What responsibility do
Very.
individuals have to those they leave behind?
Well, they don't have a legal
Especially with
responsibility,
the
but
sand. Or
it could
is
be
it?
argued that they have a moral responsibility
caravan.
or an ethical responsibility. Having said that, you know, it comes down to
Browns
the
Beach.
individual
This is
and
Browns
what they
Beach.
hold dearest
You
to
could
them at
quite
the
easily
time
get
that they
one
make
in there.
those decisions. It's not something that
It's
I
not,
think that I
not
would be
that
able to
hard.
do.
Where do we go that way now, don't we?
But having said that, you know, people
not
get
that
themselves
hard to get
involved in
in.
a lot of different
Really?
situations,
It's
and
a
it's
nice-
very, very hard
nice
to know what
area.
goes on in
Huh?
people's minds.
You want to
My
get
hope
away.
is that,
Yep.
that Marion does get found for the sake of Sally and her family. It would be a shame to
It's
think
not
that
overly-
she was here in Australia and didn't reach out to her family. I find that hard
I think
to
some
fathom
parts
because,
are a bit
again, it's
narrow.
not something that,
They're narrow,
that
yeah.
I think that I would do or certainly want any of my family to
You
do.
wouldn't get like a 22-foot
If she's
caravan
out there,
through it.
whether it be
No.
she'd be
No,
Marion or
you'd never
Florabella,
get that through.
it would be great for Sally's sake that she
Wouldn't get
reached
ours
out,
through
even
No.
if it was for
But
a
you get
person.
something which is a
And if
four-wheel
it
drive
was the case
caravan.
that she didn't
Yeah.
want to be found, just to indicate that, so Sally could have some peace of mind, because it must be terrible going through life not knowing what's happened.
She might feel, if that's the case, she's already done that, but there's no record. There's no
Not
police record on the file
mark it
of
on
that
the
conversation
map.
ever taking place. And
Tell
there's no
Kate.
record from the tracing
Huh?
service at the Salvation Army. So Sally doesn't have that certainty that either of those things happened.
No, that's right, and I feel for Sally, and that's why I think it would be fantastic if Florabella or Marion was out there to at least reach out and let her know that she is still around. As I said, you know, we have to be careful about
Point brain.
Marion's privacy, but if we got to a point where we could talk to her and find out whether she wanted to sit behind that
fine,
privacy
signal.
provision, then at least we would know what has happened without
I thought I did have
No.
you know,
before,
pulling
too.
her back
No,
into a
you
life
got
that
nothing.
she may not want to be in.
She's alive and well. Or
However, Gary Sheehan wants this case resolved for Sally's sake.
I have to give this a go. Like I have to
They're not knowing is a hard
really
No?
be able
Yep.
to sleep at night and
Or
know
that
that I've
way
done the best I
and
It's
can.
down that road.
And I'm sure
More
anyone
of
would
that stuff
appreciate
I
that.
was
Like, you know,
Yeah.
and if someone, turns up buried in bushland somewhere, you know, that'll be the most horrendous thing for me, but I'll be happy that I kept looking.
Yeah.
You've only got one. What? It's on, mine's on SOS.
Because otherwise we might not have ever found
Well,
it.
that's right, it's close.
It's a tough road, but
So this is where we
me.
came out.
You've
This
told
is-
me for a
this
long
Yeah,
time
this is
now,
where
so
we.
Very, very
Wait.
persistent.
I'm not.
What way did we went that
I'm
way?
not one to give
No,
up
we
lightly.
went that way.
And
Oh,
it's
yeah,
my
'cause
mum.
it's-
I don't think
you
I
can't
should
go
have to
that
give
way.
up.
Well,
Yeah,
you
you can
can
only
take
go
it from
that
there.
way through that
As long
way.
as I'm in the
Yeah.
police force, I'll always
We
be
went on
this
down
route.
that track.
Yeah.
But, you know, I've got a vested interest in it now because I've had it for so long and I'm intrigued
So
by
we
it
went
as well.
all the way.
Mhm.
Want to
And
take a
anything
picture of
I
that
can do
then?
to try and help get it, try
So we
and
know where we went.
work out what occurred. I mean,
We went all the way up there.
but
Up to the
yeah,
end.
I'm happy for the want to try.
Yeah.
I can get it now. Good job, I buddy. Fill it up with fuel.
Both Alison and I want to know why people suddenly decide to disappear, particularly someone who seems to have it all: a loving family,
do this
children,
way, just that.
lots of friends, a good job, and a nice home. And how hard it can be to find them. We both interviewed experts in the field, people who've spent years studying these very issues or working on missing persons cases. I spoke with Trish Halligan, the current team leader from the Australian Federal Police National Missing Persons Coordination Centre.
There's more than 38,000 missing persons reports made to police every year in Australia, and that's works out to be over 100 a day. It's a huge community issue that I don't think the majority of Australians know about. The majority of people go missing voluntarily.
Nice, really sore right
They're trying to get away from an uncomfortable situation that they aren't able to deal with. They are not provided the support they need, and so therefore they feel their only option is to run away. So, you know, we really try to get across to family members and friends who have people that they love that are suffering. They can see that there are issues, to reach out, ask them a question, are you okay? And say, you know, even if they can't provide the help that's required, that they point them in the direction of the support services that are available, so they can get the help and they don't run away from the situation. The majority of people are found within a week. But we do have currently in Australia in excess of 2,600 people that are considered long-term missing, and they're people that have been missing for more than 3 months. And you've got to think that of those 2,600, there are, you know, many family and friends that are living with the issue of not knowing what's happened to their loved one. And, you know, those issues that they have to deal with are, you know, very complex and are drawn out for many years.
How many of those people that have gone missing actually want to go missing?
I don't know that I could put a figure around it, but let's say the majority of them would
let's say-
definitely have gone missing voluntarily. But having said that, you know, obviously you're dealing with people that have come across misadventure, people that are victims of crime. You know, the fact that they are missing, that's the issue. We don't have the answers that we require. I mean, it's important to note that the National Missing Persons Coordination Centre isn't an investigative body. They don't investigate missing people. So, you know, we certainly don't have the detail of each of those cases. That belongs to the states and territories. But, you know, we work very closely with them in helping raise awareness around missing people.
For those people that go missing by choice, where they have not been a victim of a crime, there is no apparent reason for them to disappear, they're not fleeing a violent situation, there's been no report or suggestion that they're in danger. How rare is that, to simply vanish?
Well, unfortunately, it's not as rare as it sounds. There are many people that suffer
That's
in
like that
isolation,
caravan that I
so
said
they
was at a
don't
caravan.
talk to their family and friends about their issues and their problems. They keep it to themselves, and I think that is one of the big reasons that they do run away, because it gets to the point where they can't deal with it, they're not comfortable
that's not
talking
really
to others,
off-road.
and
Yes, it is.
therefore they
No,
run
it's
away
not.
to deal with that
Yeah,
situation.
It's ours.
How difficult is it to find
Same as
someone
ours.
No,
who's
it's got bloody
chosen
off-road
to
suspension.
get off the grid and disappear?
Well, these days it's much easier with social media
Janko.
and our digital devices.
Outback.
It's much easier to locate someone once they go missing. It's very unusual for someone to be able to survive
clearance
without
than we've got.
funding,
What?
without resources.
More clearance than we've got.
So the police do have quite a few avenues in order to locate people. And obviously the younger they are, the easier it is. You know, teenagers, especially these days, find it very difficult to get off their mobile devices, so it's a lot easier to locate them. But an adult who wants to go missing and wants to stay missing, unless they've got help, they usually are found quite quickly. Generally, in relation to dealing with families and friends of missing people, we do provide as much support as we can to them, especially when we're doing campaigns that we're using family members to assist us with those campaigns. You know, it is highly emotional to deal with them. You know, for them, they've already, you know, it's very much a roller coaster of emotions that they're dealing with. They just seem to get through, you know, one lot of emotions that maybe their family member has met with foul play, and then you're coming into the picture saying, hey, we've got a help profile, and they you know, their hopes are raised. They now think that maybe they are alive. So, you know, they continually have to go through these ups and downs of what's happened to their family members. And as a team, we certainly are conscious of, you know, those emotions that we're raising in them. And, you know, our only, you know, the only thing we wish to do is actually help and support them. But sometimes we do know that we do put them back into, you know, a very hard emotional state.
The old bladder working.
Well, what can you say about the disappearance of Marion Barter?
Unfortunately, I can't say anything. I'm not across that case. It belongs to New South Wales as far as I know. And I had no knowledge of that one until you guys came to talk to us. So unfortunately, I can't talk about Marion's case because I have no knowledge of it.
Yeah, it might be interesting to know, Trish, that Marion was on the missing persons register. I think she was removed in 2011. I've checked today and she's not on the AFP missing persons register. Should she be?
Well, certainly in relation to our public register, that's something that we have responsibility for, and it is located on our website. But having said that, the information that is on there is provided to us from all states and territories. The cases belong to the states and territories, so it's certainly up to them which ones go on and which ones don't. There are many reasons why we don't have certain cases on there. Some of those reasons are...
Got 3G now, she's got 4G.
I only got one.
family members to have requested them that they be removed. We've also got historical cases that we don't have images, and it's very difficult to put a profile up when there is no image of the family member. There's people that are missing at sea and not to believed alive, so there doesn't seem to be any good reason to have them on there. We've also had people that were suffering mental health issues. Their families believe that they've committed suicide and have asked that they not go on there. And then there's also the operational investigative reasoning by the states and territories. If they're in the midst of an investigation that they believe that this could hinder it by having the image on the public register, they've asked us not to put it on. So there are many reasons why they're not on, but we do regularly get contacted by family members asking them to go onto the register, and it is our practice that we would then go back to the states and territories and say to them, is there any reasons why we can't put this on, and then we move from there. So, I am not being across Marion's family's case. I can't tell you whether it should be on there, but I must say that we are directed by the states and territories police forces, missing person units, in relation to what is on the public register.
Yeah. I just heard you say you can go back to the state police department and ask them if she could be put back on. Would you consider that?
Well, certainly, if Sally had asked us at any time for that to go back on, we certainly would do that, but we would not put it on unless we had the approval of the state police that was involved in that case.
Right.
Trish, how unusual is it to find a person who has been missing for 20 years?
It is very difficult. You know, these days, if someone goes missing today, we have CCTV that we can access. There are, as we mentioned earlier, digital devices that you can track them down, bank accounts. There's all sorts of records that can be accessed, and it is much easier to locate them today. 20 years ago, all those things weren't necessarily available, so it was much more difficult, and even it would have been much more difficult back then to do it, and looking back historically, it's even more difficult. the records just aren't there to access. So unless someone is willing to speak and provide information, the police are very limited in what they can do.
I guess the $64,000 question is the only other one I have. What chance do you think there is that we will find Marion?
Unfortunately, again, because I'm not across her case, I can't answer that. I think that's a question for New South Wales Police.
You knew we would be asking about this. Can you comment on the New South Wales Police investigation in this case?
Unfortunately, I can't. Look, I certainly knew that this case, that you were going to be looking into this case, but as I wasn't in the team when we were providing information, there's nothing I could have done to actually get across the case, and as it's a New South Wales Police case, it's certainly not appropriate that I would comment on their investigation.
So I opened Bumble, hit him with my opening line. Now I'm walking into a bar to meet Dan. Maybe he won't be my type, but maybe I'll like that. Either way, I think I'm going to enjoy finding out. Fall in love with dating. Download Bumble today.
Dr. Shauna Foy is a forensic psychologist and academic based at a major Australian university.
All the missing persons involvement now is through my private practice as a consultant.
So, a missing person consultant, can I call you that?
Well, yes, I guess it's a title.
Dr. Foy has extensively researched ways to solve missing persons cases.
So what I did was a PhD, and that was just purely looking at missing persons, solved missing persons cases. So I looked at the three main categories, which are those who run away, those who are missing because they've met with foul play, and those who are missing with the intent to suicide. And cases where a person has been missing for a long time, has been closed by a correctional officer. So there was quite a large number of different sources, as well as the homicide library. So cases that have been solved, the person was reported as missing prior to them being located or returned, whether deceased or alive. So in the course of doing that, I really went through thousands of cases to pick out those ones that meet the criteria as being resolved or finalised. So that meant looking at the whole host of reasons why a person goes missing. So that included those who are missing because of intentionally going missing, of course, 18 and over, because they're considered an adult. They are a very small number of people, but there is a significant amount of people that are still currently missing that have been located. And there's no doubt that a small part of that cohort, I guess, have intentionally wanted to be missing, to have contact with their family and friends, and to start life over again. So one of the